It is another Monday. Welcome to this week's edition of the Oxygen of Democracy. Like every other week, I'm your host. My name is Alexander Musogotwane. As advertised, our guest for this week is the United Party for National Development, UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema, to discuss a number of issues, governance, economic, and everything that makes news in this country. So, good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Oxygen of Democracy.
Good evening, Alexander.
Sure.
I'm very, very grateful to be here tonight. I haven't been on your program for some time.
It's been a while. How have you been?
We're all right. We've been in the Dingy, fighting in basically in Katuba and in the elections around the country. But we're here. We're okay.
All right. A number of issues, Mr. Hichilema, we're discussing this evening. You've already given me a hint of my first question. The just ended by-elections. Of course, these are not the only elections that the UPND has participated in. A number of elections, but just your overview of the by-elections that have taken place in the recent past.
Yeah, I think the first thing to emphasize is that citizens are fatigued with elections. Election after election after election. Taking away time, valuable time, which we must spend on grappling with the welfare of the people. We are spending that time on elections. We have to find a solution to this. Secondly, we're spending too much money. Too much money, which is supposed to assist citizens improve their lives, is being spent on elections. Public money in particular, by those in office, abusing the resources of citizens. No question about it. No question about it. And then private money by those of us who are in the opposition. Put together all constitutes national resources. And I think we must ensure that these resources are not wasted on perpetual elections. As citizens, we must find an answer, a formula to this. But having said that, I want to thank the people of Katuba and the country as a whole for being resilient, for being strong, for fending off what I may call a mess of corruption around elections, abuse of resources. So much money was thrown into Katuba, unbelievably so. Headmen were getting just a cash bonanza. Food was being thrown everywhere. Cash was everywhere, but yet there's no money to pay salaries on time, public service salaries. Yet there's no money to increase public sector workers' salaries. Only 4% was awarded, but all of a sudden there is money awash to spend in these by-elections. There's something wrong about this, and we ought to change it. We ought to know where our priorities must be. They shouldn't be there. But ultimately, really, if you look at what's happening, the trend, 2019, we've had 4 parliamentary by-elections, if I'm not mistaken. Out of these 4 by-elections, parliamentary, I'm focusing on parliamentary elections, Sesheke, Ron, Bahati, and now Katuba. There's something emerging, Alexander.
Sure.
And that something emerging is that PF has lost 3 out of 4 parliamentary by-elections in 2019. It's sending a clear message that citizens will not buy the story of lavishing them with money during elections when they are suffering away from elections. So I'm glad that the citizens have woken up to the fact that abusing public resources by those in office will not win them elections, especially when there's a free, fair election, reasonably so. And I want to thank all those who were involved in elections in Katuba, different from Sesheke, different from Ron, different from Bahati, because I was in all of these elections, 4 of them. At least the public sector workers, men and women in uniform, try to keep calm in Katuba. Right. And I want to thank again the people of Katuba who have demonstrated what the feelings, what is the pulse in the country. that people want change, and nothing will stand in their way. So thank you, Katuba. I want to congratulate Kapalasa for emerging as a winner. Please, let's commit to the messages we gave to the people of Katuba. Let's work for them. And that's my message.
You've mentioned two things, by-elections as a waste of resources.
Sure.
And you're also asking citizens to stop this particular trend of by-elections. Let's look at the first aspect. Valuable time, resources are being wasted on elections. One would say that, well, if you think that by-elections are a sheer wastage of resources, maybe the UPND should boycott participating in the by-elections.
That's not the solution. The solution lies in us citizens agreeing that those in office tend to abuse public resources, taking away resources meant for school children, for meal allowances, taking away resources meant for medicines in hospitals, and pushing them into by-elections can never be right. I think as a nation we must agree that. And so the solution lies in us really, at the right time, through the right process, to agree that there's a way we can replace a councillor, there's a way we can replace a member of parliament, a chairman of a council or mayor of a city when they are not available for different reasons. Maybe death, God forbid, but also resignations, so that we create no motivation for a by-election when we're in a situation like that. And we can't deal with that when we have a proper constitutional amendment, agreed by the people, process driven by the people.
Right.
That's what I mean. And it's not a question of UPND staying away. That's not how democracy should work. We must fix this problem, and we can fix it by working maturely, working together, and it's pretty easy to do that.
So what would be your proposal to have a long-term solution?
I am saying that when we have a church-led dialogue, we can have one, electoral reforms, proper electoral reforms led by the church mother bodies. We can have constitutional reforms. We can have the restoration of the rule of law, which we don't have today. We can have respect for human rights, liberties and freedoms. Let me stick to the elections. Under a proper process, we can all agree that elections will happen every 5 years. Elections will happen every 5 years. Whoever wins a seat keeps a seat when the vacancy arises, which means the party that won the seat replaces that individual. We can do that by amending the Constitution, not in a flawed manner, and I hope we'll discuss this today, but in a manner which the process protects the content. Therefore, the leadership of the dialogue process that will bring about these reforms is best done under the church mother bodies. And then we can bring about these constitutional changes and the electoral process changes to avoid by-elections. And then the season comes for elections after 5 years. In between, we focus on developmental issues. And then whoever takes the seat retains the seat. It happens in other countries. You get elected on a party ticket, and if you decide to be bought like tomato in a market, if you're a councillor, you vacate that seat. And the party that won that seat replaces that councillor. We can change the law. That's the solution. Then we avoid wastage of those resources and focus on applying the limited resources on developmental needs. Thank you.
You've talked of issues of constitutional reforms.
Yes.
Maybe let's backtrack. Some months back, we had the National Dialogue Forum, and which your majority members of Parliament from the UPND didn't attend. Let's look at your take historically. In the recent past, what really forced you not to be part of another constitutional amendment event?
It was a flawed process from the beginning. We said it very clearly that it was a flawed process. It was driven by the PF, not by the people of Zambia. It was intended to deal with the PF's own party challenges, how to stay in office is one of the challenges that the PF is grappling with, even when they're failing to deliver to the needs of the people. And so they use this process in a, basically what I can describe in a sham way, to engineer a constitutional amendment process, which should have been a discussion under the dialogue, the national dialogue. As again I said, led by the church mother bodies. PF moved away from there, and started creating arguments that Commonwealth, at the beginning, Commonwealth is a foreign entity. Yet we are members of the Commonwealth. We are signatories to the Commonwealth Charter. We own the Commonwealth partially as a country. How can that become a foreign entity? It's a mess of a thinking process. Then they veered to ZCID. Nobody agrees, other than a small clique and surrogates of PF, that the ZCID can lead a credible dialogue process. Eventually we agreed on a church mother bodies, 3 church mother bodies. To be specific, Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, Christian Council of Zambia, CCZ, and Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, that they should lead the dialogue process. We agreed. And later on, PF walks away from there and then creates this animal called National Dialogue Forum. Pushed it in Parliament. We objected as UPND, and many other stakeholders objected. Even against the objections of many citizens, they decided to go ahead and legislated what I called an illegal NDF bill or act. Completely illegal, because it contravenes the constitutions, the Bill of Rights, where they basically created an enforcement mechanism. You don't, to threaten people with jail sentences for refusing to come to a dialogue, in a sham of a dialogue under the NDF. You don't do things like that. So this is the basis of our objection. If it had been done under the national dialogue process led by the church mother bodies, we would have participated, because we know that the process would have been correct to protect the content, and the outcomes then would have gone to Parliament to enact constitutional amendments, electoral amendments, Public Order Act amendments, restoration of the rule of law, and other things. So that is the basis upon which we raised objections.
The other general argument was that maybe if you had allowed your members of Parliament to be part of the NDF, if they argued on what you as a party believe, which is in the interest of Zambians, it would have been on record that you supported in your own ways the right things.
No, it was not a question of allowing our members of Parliament. Remember the way they designed this NDF act, sham of an act, illegal act, because it contravenes the Constitution, as I've said already. It was meant to target individuals and organizations, particularly the UPND and other opposition parties.
What are some of those clauses you think were targeted specifically to you as a party and individuals?
Clause 18. Clause 18 was, I think it's clause 18, if my memory serves me right, was that if an organization refuses to participate and encourages others not to participate in the NDF, they could go to jail. Those individuals, non-individuals in those organizations, could go to jail for 3 years. And the nation knows who was being targeted. As I sit here, I know who was being targeted. Mainly it's myself and the UPND. But we were not afraid. We argued against that. We never feared jail, because there could be no jail on an illegal piece of legislation like that one. That's one clause. Clause 17, again, if my memory serves me right, Alexander, they targeted members of Parliament, mainly from the opposition, that if they don't go as members of Parliament, they could be prosecuted. They could be sent to jail. Now, how do you make a constitution? Through conscription, through threats of jail sentences. That's not how you make a constitution. That alone is a fundamental flaw. Absolutely fundamental flaw. So these are some of the clauses I've given you an example. So for us as UPND, it was not a question of stopping members of Parliament from going. We all had to use our own conscience. And since we had consistently been against the approach for this amendment, constitutional amendment, process. We needed to be in the same line, walk the same line of logic, and that logic does not change because now there's an act that threatens you to act against your will, because you have the freedom of conscience under the Bill of Rights. Constitution, you have the freedom of conscience. They took away, PF took away that freedom of conscience, which is a fundamental right, a human right, for that matter. So that was the basis. So we didn't stop members of parliament. Some went, you know that. They went, and after they went, we sat as a party and said, okay, those who went, that's the decision they made. The party did not send a representative, UPND, because we stuck in line with our own original thinking, and nothing had changed to change our thinking. And ultimately, we agreed that when it comes to the constitutional amendment and anything to do with the NDF results, a flawed process, a sham of a process, we would not support it. And I want at this stage to thank the UPND members of parliament. 100%, all of them. Those who had attended NDF, those who didn't. We all agreed that for the sake of the people of Zambia, we will not support this selfish and greed process by the PF. And I'm proud to say, sit here today, I'm proud to say congratulations to the UPND members of parliament, congratulations to the independent members of parliament, progressive independent members of parliament, and others who decided not to be duped into this thought process by amending the constitution through the back door, because the constitution belongs to people, not the PF. And on Friday parliament sitting, if you watched, it was such a sham. I don't even understand what Mativini was trying to do there.
I'm trying to come to that.
Yes.
The argument of your party through the leader of the opposition, Jack Mimbu, is saying that procedure is not being followed.
Yes.
And other members of parliament is that there is a lot of misleading. The Speaker of the National Assembly says they've done their homework. And don't you think this push and pull is killing the progressiveness of this constitution?
No.
To argue the contents other than just walking away.
Let me use your pen as an illustration.
Sure.
This is the constitution. Now, this constitution is sacred. It's a fundamental law. To change anything in this constitution, you have to go through two minimum steps. The first step, represented by this pen, is to put a motion on the floor of the House that we intend to touch this sacred document to amend it. So to do that, anything you want to do, you then need to put this motion, and there must be a vote, and you must get 2/3 of members of parliament, not those who are in attendance on that day, but all the members of parliament who are defined as sitting members of parliament, whether they're present or not in the House. Then, if you get 2/3 majority, which PF doesn't have, that's the beauty of democracy. You can make noise and threaten people, but on a material day, you cannot buy people in the manner PF tried to do. Then you can go, if you succeed here, you get 2/3 majority, then you can go to this step to now bring this bill as demonstrating the specific changes you want to make here, which is the contents. What these fellows try to do, in a cheeky way, is to circumvent this process and come and bring the bill on the floor of the House directly. This is illegal. It offends the Constitution. So that was the cock-up. Let me call it by its name. That was the cock-up that Mativini allowed in the House. Right? So
sure.
I hope you've understood what I'm saying. So they basically are trying to cheat the people of Zambia, because they know that many citizens will not allow PF to amend the Constitution on their own, because the Constitution belongs to people. Parliament is a creation of this Constitution. So Parliament cannot override the Constitution. That's what Mativini tried to do. And he must be ashamed of himself for allowing such a sham to continue in the House. And how did it end? Our members of Parliament walked out, and they couldn't get the 2/3 majority. And I'm proud of the members of parliament. If you are hearing me, thank you for standing for the people of Zambia. That's the issue.
The explanation that was given by the vice president was that there was no need to bring politics at that particular stage, because what parliament was doing was just the mere introduction of the bill to parliament.
I have already articulated that this constitution provides for no one should touch it. As mischievous as a PF is, they are not allowed to touch it unless they can go to the two-thirds majority and get it. You can't do that. So I don't know what she was talking about. What does she mean we shouldn't bring politics? That parliament is about politics. It's about the welfare of the people of Zambia. Maybe she was not conscious of what she was saying. We can forgive her. Maybe she was subconscious. But we cannot tolerate that subconsciousness of an individual to basically circumvent the constitution. And that's why they did not achieve what they wanted. If they were doing the right thing, they should have succeeded on Friday. They will not succeed, they will not succeed, they will not succeed.
That was going to be my next question, to say how long will the UPND be walking out of parliament?
As long as it takes to protect the interests of the people of Zambia.
So it's clear that they will never be part of it?
We will never be part of it. And that's our duty. That's the beauty of a multi-party democracy. And that's why PF is trying to bring about a one-party state. And we stand in their way with pride. And that's what we achieved on Friday, last Friday, in the House. The issue, Alexander, is not a question of how long. If they do the right thing, it doesn't have to take long. We don't have to walk out. We don't have to object. What is the right thing? Take the constitutional debate to the national dialogue under the three church mother bodies. Then we can discuss as a nation, as a people, and reach consensus as to what changes do we want to make. At that point,
sure,
there's no need for UPND to walk out, because we will do the correct thing. We will follow the right process and protect the content. What PF tried to do was to cheat as usual, to cheat the people. People would have woken up on Saturday morning only to an announcement that the constitution has been amended in a fourth process. We can never allow that to happen. And we don't even count the times we walk out. We will walk out, we will act in other ways. By the way, we acted in so many ways. While people were sleeping on Thursday in the night, we never slept, some of us, to protect for the people of Zambia's interests. And that's why the result was like that. Again, credit to the members of parliament, including independents, progressive independents. I want to appeal to the PF members of parliament. You should be on the right side of history on this one. Definitely you are on the wrong side of history. This constitution should outlive individual members of parliament who are in the House now. It should outlive the next generation of members of parliament. And you can only do that by conducting yourselves correctly, professionally, objectively, and for the interest of the people, not for the personal. Look what they try to do. On one hand, the PF as a party were saying, oh, we don't agree with deputy ministers. On another, they were going to bring and shock the people, the deputy ministers there. We also know what they wanted to do, Alexander. They wanted on the floor of the House to sneak in a motion to extend the PF government to a 7-year term. We know what they wanted to do. We are equal to the task on behalf of the people of Zambia.
How sure are you with that?
Absolutely. We know how mickey they are. We know how deceptive they are. Why would you bring a motion first so late in the night on Thursday for the following day, Friday? And why would you want to conduct yourself in a non-procedural way? What is the motive? It can only be mischief. And we are equal to the task. I want the people of Zambia to feel comfortable that there are many of us who will not be bullied into doing wrong things. We will stand for their interests. Thank you.
So what you're saying, if I'm getting you correctly,
Yeah.
Mr. Ichilema, is that you would rather this process starts afresh?
This process cannot proceed the way it's being done now. Who wants to have deputy ministers when the economy is in a meltdown situation? Who wants to have deputy ministers? Who wants to have 80 more ministerial cars by 200 160. Who wants to have ministers getting so much money when citizens go to bed without food? Who wants to do that? Not me, not UPND, not the Progressive Independents, certainly not the majority of the people of Zambia. So this process must go to the dialogue process, Alexander, under the church, and then we can say we don't want deputy ministers, so there will be nothing like that. We don't want to waste money. We're already losing too much money on political public sector, the ministers, right? What will the deputy minister do anyway, other than sharing money, stealing through that process? We don't want Parliament to remain open up to the election time, because PF will abuse government motor vehicles, people's motor vehicles, fuel, and allowances to campaign for PF. It will disadvantage everybody else. It will be wasting money, number one. Number two, disadvantage other competitors, genuine competitors. Number three, why would you want Parliament to remain open while councillors are dissolved, but the councillors and MPs are voted at the same time? That is selfish. That's greed. We don't want that. We don't want mayors and chairmen of the councils to be elected amongst councillors. This is a position that the PF brought us into in 2016 when they amended the constitution. We want the mayors and the council chairman to continue being elected directly by the people. Then they are people's representatives. Why does PF want to change this? And mayors and chairmen out there do not agree to this mess. But certainly, we are on your side, not because we want to favor you, but because it's the right thing to do. We want people to have more power by electing their representatives in that manner. And why change it?
Some of the issues that you've mentioned, the ruling party also agrees with you that they also have their own perception on how the constitution should be. And they also don't agree with the outcome of some of the resolutions in the NDF. I thought you should be impressed.
That is deception. We are not that gullible. That is deception. That is the deception of the PF, and this is a cancer in PF. Ubufi akachelo, ubufi akasuba, ubufi nechungulo, n'obushiku. Bubera bwatama kesha bakakuyuka. This is the deception. This is the don't kubeba of the PF. They will say so. First and foremost, Alexander, who brought these proposals to the NDF? It's the PF. It is the PF. When they felt that the people now were objecting to them, they do a Kalulu game, a hare. Those of you who read those books of a hare when you were young. Kalulu now realizes that the people are against it. They turn around and say, we too, we are against it. But they wanted deception, only to bring it back on the floor of the House. So there's nothing to be excited about that. It shows the inconsistency in the PF. And we cannot allow a country to be run by such people full of inconsistencies. Thank you.
All right. I'm sure on the issues of the Constitution, you'll be referring back to it. But
yeah, this is your pen. I've finished the illustration. Thank you.
Just for the sake of moving on, knowing that we have a lot of issues to discuss, you've written a number of statements on the country's economy, and just recently the International Monetary Fund report has described Zambia's economy as being in dire stress.
Yes.
In the past as well, you've been accused of speaking ill about this country, and of course you being the main reason why some of the people rather, you being one of the people why we're discussing the economy in negativity. But maybe as we're discussing this, we can show a document on the International Monetary Fund just to help us illustrate this idea. As we're waiting for that document to be shown on the screen, in your own words, how would you describe the country's economy?
Mr. Lungu, Alexander, and the PF, please hear my words correctly, and the people of Zambia. Mr. Lungu and the PF have basically driven our economy into intensive care. Right now, our economy is in an intensive care unit because of the failure of leadership on the PF side, because, secondly, of corruption. If you want, because, number three, extravagance expenditure. Poor leadership, poor policies, number one. Number two, unprecedented levels of corruption we've never seen before in our country. Number three, lavish expenditure. When resources are scarce, as always is the case, a leadership team that will be responsible, like us in the UPND, will be prudent, will use resources sparing. The PF are extravagant. You can see it. This colleague of ours, Mr. Lungu, went to Solwezi recently, a few days ago. He took 2 planes. As though that was not enough, he took 2 helicopters. For what? How much money did he spend on that trip? What is his interest? Does he care about the children who are out of school? Does he care about Copperbelt University, which has been shut for a long time because of meal allowances and other things? Lecturers' pecs, does he care about that? He doesn't. Extravagance. Living lavishly when citizens who own the resources are hurting. That's not leadership. That's failure of leadership. So, 3 things I've given. The economy first is an intensive care unit, because I am repeating deliberately, so those who may have not heard correctly can hear. Lack of leadership, poor policies of the PF. 2, corruption. 3, extravagance. The first point there, when I say lack of leadership, it leads me to something I hope we'll discuss. The debt mountain that they've created, Kaloba. The debt that they've created because of their poor policies, poor leadership. Even when we're telling them don't borrow too much money, they went ahead to borrow money. So now we're in a debt mountain. And there's a consequence of being in a heavily indebted country, which we had come out not long ago. That's not leadership. That's failure of leadership. So there are things around there on poor leadership, poor policies, appetite to borrow, leading to a huge debt that is choking away resources meant for development, but goes into debt service. And I hope we can show that screen.
All right, we're just waiting for the same document. But talking of there it is.
Yes, there you are.
Right, so here we talk.
No. Let's go to the economy. Let's go to the economy.
All right, okay, yeah.
Let's go to the economy. There's a slide on the economy.
Okay, yeah, we'll be able to get to that.
The state of the economy.
The explanation on the International Monetary Fund. But as we're waiting for that.
Yes. But I can run you through.
When you say that the economy is in their need.
Yes. It's an intensive care.
Your fellow politicians have asked you to always provide analytical solutions other than just speaking in general. The others have called it abstract criticism. What are some of the solutions that you can provide other than just saying we're in intensive care unit?
Well,
I believe the document is ready, but you can go ahead and
it would be nice to look at the document if we can, because it will bring us to there you are.
Okay,
there you are. You can read it for the people.
So highlights on the state of the Zambian economy. President Gadungu has driven our economy into intensive care unit. Those are words.
Absolutely.
From the IMF report show that as at end of April 2019, the Zambian government owed 18.9 billion United States dollars. That's 12.6 billion external debt and 6.3 billion domestic debt. By the end of December 2019, the total debt will increase to 21.7 billion United States dollars, and of course explaining further for 14.2 billion external and 7.5 billion kwacha domestic
debt,
7.5 United States dollars, or rather domestic debt. The impact of this reckless borrowing by the Patriotic Front is that out of the 4.1 billion United States dollars that ZRA will collect in 2019, 1.6 billion will be used to service external debt. As your party, the UPND, you are aware that another 2.0 billion United States dollars is spent on the public service wage bill. So maybe I can let you explain further what you really mean on that.
Yes. If we go to the first slide, because you made a comment that others are criticizing us for not helping the country out of the doldrums created by an incompetent leadership, right? First, we were arguing as citizens. When we first made our serious comments about the PF's inability to lead this country, because they did not have the vision, they did not have the policies that would take our country into the direction we wanted. Growth. That's the direction we wanted. Growth of the economy. So we can create the jobs that they lied about in 2011, that there will be no more jobs. We said the PF had no capacity to do that. They had no plan. We said it. That they had no management capacity to follow through the noise they were making about more jobs. Now we know they meant no jobs, not more jobs. The noise they were making about lower taxes, we knew they had no capacity. Now we have a tax mountain. A tax burden is heavy. They talked about more jobs. We knew that was a facade. They had no capacity. We made those arguments to the people of Zambia. And Alexander, most of the people did not agree with us. In PF, most of the people in PF did not agree with us. And some ordinary Zambians were confused. They were saying, what is HH saying? But because we had the vision, we had the understanding that we will be where we are, I can't blame people who are arguing. Now, we don't have any more arguments. We've settled the scores. I said, do not borrow too much money. Because you are saying we're not advising. We've been advising. Check, you're a journalist. Go back, see what we were saying in 2012, 2013, 2014. We anticipated being where we are now. Now, let's go to the screen, if it's there. Right? Now,
okay, I'm sure
right.
The director is going to...
Okay, let's go up a little bit. By end of April, let's go down. By end of April, here you are. These are the highlights. Why we are saying Mr. Lungu and PF has driven our economy into intensive care unit. By end of April, it is April 2019, it's now clear that the debt position is as huge as $18.9 billion. I said it in 2015. Then our debt, in our calculation, that don't borrow too much money, you take the country into the debt crisis, and I projected the debt then that it would be 17 billion. Everybody argued in PF. Majority argued. There are the numbers now, confirmed by the IMF. You didn't need the IMF to confirm that for us. We knew it as citizens. We advised against it. Nobody followed our advice. Since you're saying some are arguing that we did not advise. And look at the implication of that. When you have a debt position, Alexander, of that level, and in 2018, our economy, Alexander, size of our economy was basically to only the tune of 26 billion. $26 billion was the size of our economy in 2016. $26.7 billion. Now, if your loan portfolio is $18 billion and projected to get to $21.7 billion by the end of this year, and your economy, your debt is going up, which we warned against. And how did it arise? Heavy appetite to borrow, number one. Number two, when they borrowed, they never invested the money in revenue generating. They consumed the money and stored the money through corruption. Where? Fire tenders. Bought fire tenders, 42 fire tenders for $42 million. When the fire tenders were only worth each around $300,000. We talked about it. We warned against it. They went and bought ambulances, expensive ambulances, when they could have spent money on cheap ambulances. They went ahead and started spending extravagantly on roads. you must ask, what was the appetite to spend money on roads? Because that's where it was easy to steal money. I have given this example in this studio, Alexander. Lusaka, where we are here, Ndola Road, highway. It should cost a maximum of $400 million. The PF costed it at $1.2 billion. Basically, by implication, they stole $800 million. That's the money they stole on this road via the contractual process. So they took out the money they borrowed, did not put it in the economy, took it out through corruption. As the Financial Intelligence Center 2017 report, 2018 report, Alexander, showed that close to $1.1 billion was taken away, siphoned, misapplied, misused in this country. And are you surprised that there will be an argument on 48 houses and nobody for some time was an owner? Maybe we'll come to that. But let's stick to the issue.
Right.
So the money was taken. The point I'm making now is that we were arguing before. We have settled the argument. It did not need the IMF to come with the figures, to confirm the figures we were telling them as PF and citizens. So the issue is that on one hand the debt is going up, but there's no compensating benefit to the economy. Why am I saying so? As you see from that summary, PF found the economy growing at 7% when there was a lower debt. They come into office, the growth has come down to 2%. This year, we are projected to grow only by 2%, means a reduction from 7% to 2%. At the same time, the debt is shooting up. This is a contradiction. If you have acquired more debt, you should see more growth. But why is there no growth? Because the money has gone through, one, thefts arising from corruption. Two, it has gone in extravagance, where Mr. Lungu is traveling every other day, not to drive development, but to drive allowances for him and his entourage, huge entourage. You can never develop like that. So the point I'm making, Alexander, is that we have settled the argument that PF has no vision, is chipante, has no capacity to run an economy, and the figures now show that the debt is up, the economic growth is going down. The consequence of that is that there are no jobs, yet they talked about more jobs in 2011. That there will be no growth. That's why there are no jobs, because there's no growth. Number three, that citizens now have to pay for the PF's appetite to borrow more. They've also to pay for the PF's extravagance, spending more money. And that's why they want to bring about deputy ministers and other unnecessary expenditure. Now, what we said, which was your real question.
Yes, because
what we said, what was the remedy?
You've said that yes, we are in intensive care, so meaning,
Yes.
medical terms, we are not yet dead. Isn't it? The economy is still
We're close to
breathing.
being a vegetable.
Yes, but
Yeah.
this is now my question.
Yes.
What is the solution? If you were called today to say, well, you seem to be giving the right answers, especially you did prophesize the problem
Yes.
we're in and the figures that
Yes.
correspond to what you talked about earlier.
Yes.
What are some of the short-term solutions? Before, of course, you being a politician, you talk about change of leadership in 2021, but we're talking of the real problems now. What are some of the solutions to address the current economic status, which you say is in distress?
Alexander, we should not be shy to say that the PF has failed, and they must come out. We should not be shy. We must emphatically say PF has failed. Even those who believed in PF now understand that they are suffering too in their homes. They're hungry. Everybody's hungry. The cost of food is too high. So the point is that why do we elect governments, parties into government? We elect them to grow our economy. These have not done that. We elect them to create jobs. These have not created jobs. Actually, what they've done, they've retired people in national interest. A lot of people. The little number of people who were in employment have been removed. Those who are remaining in employment, they are paid salaries late. They've only a very small salary increment, 4%. If you are a public sector worker, you're getting 2,000 kwacha. Your increment under the PF, poor leadership, is only 80 kwacha. 80 kwacha. What is the price of mealie today? 115, 120 kwacha. Your annual increment, when you've had no increment for many years, you're waiting, you've only been increased your salary by 80 kwacha, 80. You can't buy one bag of mealie. So there's nothing you've got. Given that the cost of living has gone up on other items, bus fares, fuel, electricity, add the load shedding, you've actually not been paid any increment. So you know that this government has failed. So when a government fails, we must take it out. That's why we have a democratic process. Now, hear me out. Sure. We must take it out. So there's no need to be shy about that. Many people are shy about the regime change.
Short-term solution.
Yeah. I wanted to emphasize this because that's why parties come and go. This party must go. PF must go. It has failed. It has damaged our economy. They found a health economy of 7% growth. Now they wiped it out to 2% in 2019. The projections there. The numbers are there. When I say these numbers, people argue, we need to landa to protect you people as citizens. That's why we're there. So the solution now for us as UPNU, I'm sure you are delighted to listen to this. The first thing we will do ourselves as we take office, not if, as we take office, but with respect that this will come under the courtesy of the people of Zambia. Very respectful that the people must decide. First thing, I'll give you 4 measures to deal with this collapse in the economy. Since debt is one major problem. Number 1, we will restructure the debt. Number 1, restructure the debt. Number 2, we will reschedule the debt. Number 3, we will put a moratorium on any more loans. No more getting loans to buy wheelbarrows called fire tenders. Number 4, Alexander, the resources that we generate, domestic and foreign, when it's necessary, will be applied in investment expenditure. We will put them in agriculture, these resources. We will put them in tourism. We will put them in commerce and trade. We will put them in value addition. Like, instead of selling maize, which the PF is doing, we will not sell maize. We'll put a policy, we don't sell maize, Zambian maize. First, we must feed our people. Secondly, we will export maize, if you like, maize meal, mealie meal, let's call it that. We will export stock feed into the neighboring countries, some of whom are buying stock feed from Australia, neighboring next door. So that's where our money will go. By putting our money in those revenue generating areas, Alexander, we'll be able to yield results. We'll be able to generate revenues to support, if you like, interest costs, debt service. That's what a capable leadership of UPND will do. So these are the 4 measures I've given you. Rescheduling, first.
You said restructure.
Restructure, reschedule, moratorium on further borrowings, and when the resources are available, invest them in revenue generation, which will help grow the economy, which will create the jobs, which will also help you to generate fair tax revenue. That's how the economy is run, in simple terms. Those are solutions. Those are solutions. We've been saying these solutions for a long time, except no one is listening in the PF. They've chosen to put cotton wool in their ears. They're unwilling to listen. Why? Because they never went into government to help the people, to run the economy. They went into government to steal, to build houses which you can't find owners for. When
you say to steal, what do you mean?
Corruption. The FIC report is clear. The Auditor General's report is clear. The evidence is there. The test of the pudding is in the eating. Here is the IMF report. This is a report after the April 2019 visit, July board meeting. Here it is. It says it all. But when I said it, nobody believed me. Because a foreign, so-called foreign entity, I don't call it foreign because we are part owners of the IMF. We're members of the IMF, right? Here it is in black and white, talking about these figures that you have seen, the figures that I warned about in 2012, 13, 14, 15. If people listen to our advice, sound advice, we wouldn't be where we are today. And that's why you can't redeem PF. The correct thing to do is to ask them to take a rest and allow UPND and progressive opposition to take over so that we can correct this mess. So the first mess is to deal with the debt position. Let me just illustrate on the restructuring.
Sure.
We will replace expensive debt with cheaper debt. Your question should be, why can't PF do that? One, they can't do it because they have no interest in the welfare of the people. Two, they have no capacity at all. And that's why changing finance ministers does not solve the problem. No. Where do you change in 3 years? You have 3 finance ministers. So are you saying the problem is finance ministers? No. The whole system is rotten. It's incapable. Number 3, they have no credibility. PF has no credibility to source loan funds at a lower cost. Because they have no credibility, they are not able to do it. Because someone will say, why are they not doing it? I asked the same question, but I have answers. I've given you the answers. That is the reason they are not doing it. They just never structured. They were never meant to assist the country grow, to create jobs. They were never meant to do that. The whole genetic material of the PF was to go in to eat while citizens go hungry. And that's why we must be agreed as citizens. Let's not allow ourselves to be divided further by PF. Let's take the right decision to chuck them out at the earliest opportunity. Citizens must be asking themselves a question. Can they survive up to 2021?
That was going to be my
They
next.
can't.
You say checking them out. What do you mean, and which time frame would you propose for Zambians to seek a change in leadership?
Zambians, the people of Zambia have the power to change government whenever they want to. They've done it before.
So
listen to me.
You're asking Zambians even to decide today?
Yes, they should have decided yesterday. Because
We have early elections? That's what you're
Because in Alexander, you may be young, but institutional memory is important. We had an election in 1988, right? And someone claimed to have won by 70–80%. But citizens were hungry. There were no jobs. The IMF, like now, had walked out of Zambia, as they have walked out of Zambia now. Same conditions. The cost of food was high. People were in distress. Alexander, at my age, I have never seen citizens suffer the way they're suffering today under PF. Never. Where people go to bed without food in a country as rich as this one, where we can grow enough food to feed the whole region, our citizens are going to bed without food. When there's food on the shelves, it's too expensive. People can't buy because they are not employed. The retirees have not been paid their retirement benefits, right? Those who are in government jobs, the few, are being retired in national interest for various unacceptable reasons. So, there are too many problems in our country. So the next election should have been 1993. But the citizens said, no, twachula pafula. We want an early election, 1991. The election was held 2 years ahead. It is up to the people of Zambia to decide to do that, because they are the ones who put governments in office to save them. But when you have a government like PF, which is so greedy, which is so insensitive, which doesn't care about the welfare of the people, citizens can decide, awe twanaka naimwe, talema naimwe, talema naimwe, talema tanaka. That is absolutely correct, and it's in the purview, in the domain of Zambians. They can do it. They've done it before. So Just ask yourself a question as you are listening to this program. If you're a father leading a home, you're a mother, are you managing to feed your family every day? Are your children happy? Are your children in school? Are those who completed school working? Those who are working, are they getting decent salaries commensurate to their qualifications? The answer to all these questions is no, no, no. So why do you keep a government in office? To do what?
But if you say that Zambians are hungry and the Patriotic Front has won elections in the space of 2 years, 2015 and 2016, don't you think Zambians, the same people that you are saying are hungry, are still accepting a party that is making them suffer?
I have answered that question earlier, that we had an election in 1988. The same Zambians in 1999, a year later, 90, decided no, we are tired of these people. Same Zambians, same. And my friend, hunger is ravaging homes. I actually feel it. You can't claim to be immune to the problems going on, because we as Zambians are all interrelated. Our family members are cross ethnic lines because we're intermarried. We're one people. Even if we're not intermarried, we are all citizens of Zambia. They're hating. And the hate is felt by all of us. Everybody. You know it as you sit here. You know your own situation. Are you better now, Alexander, than you were about 3-4 years ago? Definitely you were better 4 years ago. Why are you not okay now? Because of the PF poor leadership and greed and corruption. So this is what we are saying to the people of Zambia. Only is their mouthpiece. They know what I'm saying is true. They feel it. I say what I say because of what they're saying to us. HH speak for us. Yesterday, today, Alexander, the messages, the phone calls that came to me to say, HH, where you are going, speak for us, please. We are speaking for you because that's our duty. You don't have to worry who is happy about what we're saying or not. We only care about the welfare of the people. That's why we seek public office. And that's why I've always said that politics is not a game. It's not a game when we are having to spend. ZRA will collect all the $4.1 billion ZRA will collect in the 2019 budget, Alexander. $1.6 billion of this money will go to servicing the debt, external debt. $2 billion will go to looking after public sector pay. Very little pay for individuals, right? Out of this $2 billion that goes for public sector wage bill, the bulk of it is spent on politicians, not even professional civil servants, but on politicians. This is criminal. Non-essential staff like district commissioners. That's where the money will go. That's where the money will go. Now, only US $400 million will be left to support the economy, health, education, tourism, agriculture. Are you surprised why agriculture sector is collapsing? Are you surprised why the tourism sector is collapsing? Are you surprised why there are no medicines in hospitals? A person who is not working, is a widow, goes to hospital, they get a prescription, a piece of paper. Instead of medicines, they give you a piece of paper. That yendani ukakule mkwala. Manje uzakula kuti mkwala susebeza. Susebeza. Ndalama yenda kuti. Ndalama baidi aba PF. Baidi mu roads, mu fire tenders, mu contracts for procurement of fertilizer. Baadi ya ndalama yonse. Manje we susebeza. Ngandiwe retiree bagalibo kupaza ndalama zako ati ndani ukakule mkwala. Ufera mu nyumba. Ndana kupaya. The government.
So let's try to picture this, yes. Mr. Hichilema.
Yes.
If Zambians don't heed to your call to call for any elections, and we wait for the prescribed time of 2021 for general elections, what is your prediction of the economy?
the economy will get worse than this. Already,
maybe practical explanation.
Yes.
What will happen to a common Zambia?
Yes, I'll come to that. Already the projection is that, Alexander, by these figures, 2018, our economy was $26 billion. Huh? Because of the poor management of the PF, including the depreciation of the kwacha losing value against the dollar, and the non-performance in terms of utilizing the loan money into revenue-generating activities, but spent it in consumption, as we have demonstrated already, the economy will decline in 2019, by end of 2019, from 26.7 billion, Alexander, to only $23.9 billion by the year end. Because you asked me the question, what will happen to the economy at the rate we're going? It's declining. It is declining at a fast rate. When it declines at a fast rate, that was your question, what will happen to families? One, they will have no money to buy food. Two, they will have no money to send their children to school. Three, they will not be able, if they have a mortgage, they will not be able to support a mortgage. So they may lose their house. So they may have no shelter. So they may end up in the streets. Marriages will break. Musokotwane, Alexander, marriages will break. Look at what PF is doing. Worse still. 2 civil servants are married, working for government in Lusaka. The wife is a nurse. The husband is a teacher in Lusaka. The PF will transfer the nurse to Kasempa and leave the husband in Lusaka. They know that this couple is married. This is cruel. Because now this couple has to support a home in Kasempa and a home in Lusaka. They're not earning enough money. Their salary increment is only 4%. The marriage will be on the rocks. They will not raise their children properly as a family. This is the consequence of PF's poor leadership. This is painful. This is really unacceptable, right? And yet, what do you see? A man goes to Solwezi, and all he's doing is talking about HH there, with four aeroplanes, 2 helicopters, 2 planes. Is he aware of what's going on with this couple of a civil servant who are being separated? Where is the human resources aspect, the humane aspect? You want to anguish people. Is he aware? I don't even think he's aware. He's not interested. He's only interested in his allowances. So now, this is what will happen to people. What else will happen? A marketeer who used to sell 10 boxes of tomato at the market, by the year end, Musokotwane, will only be able to sell 1 box of tomato if they're like. Because, why? There's no money. There's no one to buy. A taxi driver who used to cash in maybe 400 kwacha per day will cash in 200 kwacha. The taxi driver will not earn enough, family will be in trouble. The taxi owner will not earn enough, the taxi owner will be in trouble. If they borrowed the money to buy a taxi, the bank will take over the taxi. So there will be mayhem everywhere. Talk about 2020. January school fees. Children will not go back to school. They will stay at home. Already too many are staying at home. This is the consequence of having a leadership or a failed leadership of the PF.
Right.
I can give you more examples. Those who were hoping to be paid their retirement benefits, they will not be paid. Kuribe.
I'm trying to maybe
yes.
Allow me to slide into politics a bit.
Problem.
You are calling for Zambians to call for the elections, and your colleague,
yes, they are right.
President Galungu has hinted that, has said in his own words that you never be president. I'm seeing some sense of tagging here. What comes to your mind when you're told that you never be president?
First, Mr. Lungu is reducing our country. I've analyzed what he has been saying. and I've come to the conclusion that he wants to drag HH and Zambians into a pig hole. Very clear. And I refuse, we refuse to be dragged into there as citizens. We have enough problems here of hunger, of children not going to school, of unemployment. That's where HH's time, UPND's time and attention should be, not to be dragged into that hole. It's too messy there, it's too smelly there. That's number one. So we refuse to go that direction. The good news also, number two, is that Mr. Lungu is wanting to take the space, the place of God. The first commandment, written in God's handwriting, 10 commandments. The first commandment says, there shall be no other gods other than me. Who is me? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. In Bemba we say Mutakatifu. This is the God and the only God. And God says, there shall be no other gods other than me. First commandment. Mr. Lungu wants to take the place of God, where he decides who becomes president, who does not become president. His answer lies in the first commandment. Only God decides through the people of Zambia, his children, not Mr. Lungu. It never worries me an inch. I don't even spend sleepless night. I just laugh about it and I feel sorry for him. Soon he will regret what he said, because God has always said, your ways are not my ways. God's ways are totally different from Mr. Lungu's rantings. I call them rantings. Yeah.
Another issue of discussion this evening, it's sales tax.
Yes.
You've spent so much time discussing this particular issue.
Yes.
A lot of pronouncements have been made by government, of course, under different ministers. Just recent, the new finance minister, Dr. Bwalyangandu, did announce the withdrawal of this particular bill. It's just been withdrawn, though I don't like using the word withdraw, but it's just been suspended. Yeah. Until they finish this current sitting of the House in Parliament. We are for discussion and are ready for implementation January 2020, and up for discussion when the country witnesses the budget presentation in October 2019. Let's look at this. Maybe before I ask you what changes should be made, when this was announced as up for implementation in the current financial cycle, what were your misgivings about this particular tax?
I think, Musokotwane, I propose that we put the screen.
Sure. Let's get to the screen and maybe...
We get the screen.
Also, yeah.
What I said 3-4 months ago.
So there it is.
You can read it.
All right.
So
those
that
are your words, by the way.
Those are my words.
Sure.
You can read my words.
All right. As late as...
They will not be attributed to you.
As late as 3 months ago, when the Patriotic Front wanted to introduce GST, the UPND put the statement below to its president, as it is the practice in this country. The Patriotic Front ignored it, and the UPND back exactly where we started from, as the policy measure was again deferred. That was Friday. According to the EPND and the court, we are told the reason is to allow for wider consultation. So that is the statement that was issued by you.
So we can read that, yes.
All right. PF should drop the idea of introducing goods and sales tax, GST, and return to the value-added tax, VAT, now, says HH. There are those of us
goods
who
and
believe
services
the
tax,
efficacy of the value-added tax as a fairer consumption tax for logical and technical reasons.
Very important.
When correctly implemented, VAT is likely to have a higher positive impact on the economy and society as a whole. In particular, the benefit of VAT lies among
just slow down there. Read it slowly. The benefits of
all right. The benefit of VAT lies among others in its ability to promote savings, capital formation and investment, which is essential for economic development, jobs creation, business opportunities, social uplift, and poverty reduction.
Absolutely.
All right, maybe I can end there so that I...
Just go down. Just finish it.
Sure. Can I begin? Okay. VAT is a tax whose possible negative effect on low-income earners can be mitigated through appropriate tax credits / allowances.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think there was GST down there.
Okay, we'll be referring to it.
Very good.
So, still getting back, that's part of the explanation. And
that's a statement I issued 3-4 months ago. Yeah.
Right.
And I said, you cannot replace VAT with GST, goods, right, and services tax. In simple terms, sales tax. And that's the argument I made 3-4 months ago. Again, I alerted PF that this is a wrong approach because value-added tax compared to the sales tax, in the manner PF were planning to implement it, sales tax would not be appropriate to replace value-added tax. And the reasons are given there. When implemented correctly, value-added tax is critical in the sense that it will help mobilize savings, it will help mobilize capital, it will lead you to investments, which will bring you jobs, which will bring you tax revenue. And part of the arguments that were being made is that value-added tax is penal to the low-income earners. We provided a solution there 3-4 months ago.
Sure.
That the solution will be to deal with tax credits for the low-income earners under the VAT system. PF made an argument that they did not like the VAT refunds. But Alexander, there's a solution to that. You deal with the issue or challenges that arose from the VAT refunds. In the first place, PF government collected money from companies, not just mines, from companies, as basically money that should be refunded once the company proves that the purpose for which that they brought in the goods has been applied. And the PF used the VAT collections, which is refundable, on by-elections, on buying motor vehicles for ministers, on buying an expensive presidential jet. I argue here, money which did not belong to them belongs to companies. When companies discharge their documentation to get a refund, they found that the money was eaten by PF. Extravagance, remember I talked about? Excessive expenditure, corruption in projects, procuring projects at a higher cost, money which does not belong to them. In a nutshell, they basically store people's money. It's laughable, a government stealing poor citizens' money, companies included. Now, if that was an issue, for us in UPND, our solution was that we would then ring-fence that problem area around refunds. The first thing is we will not use money which does not belong to us. From my background, our background, you don't take money that does not belong to you. Do these people in PF care? They don't. Do they have the background to allow them to fear someone's money? They don't. They don't. Secondly, for us, we would then ring-fence that issue and reform that part of VAT so that you don't have a problem of refunds. Because they were saying they were running out of money. But you don't run out of money because you don't take money which is not yours. You put it in an income earning instrument. And then when it's due to be paid to the owner, you pay it to the owner. In the same way, a taxpayer would pay the government money due to the government when there's a call on that money. It's exactly the same. But we were only going to deal with that refund issue so that the government is not disadvantaged, if there was any disadvantaging the government. And then companies and businesses are not also disadvantaged. Because The government needs companies. The companies needs government. We all need each other. That's what UPND's approach will be as we take office. And then there's mutuality, which will help grow the economy. Because it's the companies that will help us grow the economy must be supported. Zambian companies, Alexander, Zambian companies must be supported. Because that's where the growth will come from. And that's why we would reverse this trend of the economy growing at a declining rate from 7% when PF took over to 2%. We will do the reversal by applying the measures the way I'm saying. The economy will grow back to 7 and probably 8% under UPND. Then the jobs will come out of there. Then the business opportunities will come out of there, coupled with other measures. Then the tax revenue will improve from there. Then when we collect that money, we will not buy a presidential jet. I have already said it before. One of our first tasks is to sell that presidential jet and recover the money, put the money in agriculture to lower the cost of production, including cost of fertilizer, to procure fertilizer away from corruption in bulk at competitive prices, to bring about domestic improvement in the capacity of producing fertilizer, appropriate fertilizer, in the local industries, and then we'll lower the cost of fertilizer. I hope you are aware that we have projected and given the numbers. I gave advice already, and the write-up that shows how we'll reduce the cost of inputs, how we'll improve yields, supporting farmers with extension services, good extension services, and then we should be able to produce a ton of maize at a lower cost, leading to selling a bag of mealie at around 50 kwacha per bag, not 110. Because PF found a bag of mealie selling at 30 kwacha per bag. Now it is 115, 120. In some places, 130. People cannot afford food. And if you can't feed your people, your population, you don't deserve to be in government. I'm a farmer. I understand. My farming colleagues know that I understand what I'm talking about. But also, urban people must know that they need somebody who understands farming so that their cost of mealie, their cost of tomato, their cost of vegetables, their cost of meat can come down. Then they can look after their family. It is us in the UPND who can do that. So this is the point I am making, Alexander. This is what we intend to do. And again, there are the solutions. Because people say, where are the solutions? There are the solutions.
Still getting back to the issue of sales tax.
Yes.
Like I did say, it's just suspension, and it still be up for discussion in Parliament. What would be your advice? We don't need... First, if I was a young person, Alexander, I would have said, I've won this argument. Because I warned the PF, do not do what you want to do. I only analyze the flaws of basically replacing VAT. I didn't tell you even the issues that the VAT platform, Alexander, we invested a lot of money as a country. Point of sale, if you go to a supermarket, they will punch, you buy something, that till machine was configured to VAT. It means it's not just the taxpayers' money which was spent on the infrastructure for VAT. It is also the private companies that invested in the VAT infrastructure, including point of sale. Those little those little equipment you see when you go at a shop, they punch in. It will show the VAT. There was the programming software there, there's hardware there. That's money. That's national money, even if it may be owned by a supermarket or by, if you like, a shop owner. You protect those investments. If you are a leader like us who understands the economy and the investments, which PF does not, especially the leadership of PF at the top, there's zero understanding, right? You will ensure that you don't throw away that investment by replacing the general sales, goods and services tax. Sales tax, let's call it that way. You plan for it properly. There was no planning. Is there anyone who will argue that there was no planning? No. Dudu Mwanakatwe. Margaret Dudu Muhango Mwanakatwe, who I know very well. Very well. As I'm speaking, she's probably worried what I'm going to say next. But I will not do it because I'm civilized. She knew that there was no planning put into replacing VAT with GST. There was nothing.
There was no infrastructure planning, hardware, software, the platforms. It was not there. A schooled person should have advised Mr. Lungu that, sir, this measure cannot work because we have not planned for it. That's the message I gave 4 months ago. So you cannot implement it. And they argued, they postponed the implementation first time, second time. Now, Waryangandu, who also I know very well, and I feel sorry for him because he can't change this economy. It's finished, it's gone. The numbers show. It's gone. Economy is basically damaged by PF. It had to take Waryangandu to admit what I was advising PF 4 months ago, that you cannot, replacing a tax like VAT with the GST sales tax by word of mouth, by wishful thinking. You have not thought through the implications and the cost and the timing. And number 3, there was no consultation. Waryangandu agrees.
Consultation part, I think one of the last ministerial statement
Yes.
the former finance minister did make. That's Honorable Margaret Manakatwe. She said that she did consult, I think, in almost all the provinces, and there was positive feedback on the issue of. I'm taking her word.
Of course.
She said it. So I'm telling you as well, but consultation was made.
All right. I watched her say that, and there was a rerun of that clip yesterday. Someone ran her clip yesterday. She was in Parliament saying that she had done enough consultations. She lied. She did not consult industry, because the statements, when that matter came to Parliament, industry, commerce and the industry representative went and represented to Parliament that they were not consulted. Who else was not consulted? The unions. They were not consulted. Just the way the unions were not consulted and businesses were not consulted on the national health scheme, which is another tax. And now you can see the haphazard manner they're trying to implement it. It's a mess. They're telling workers, okay, we'll deduct 4 months to do a trial run. It's the most foolish thing to do. Workers are already stressed. Now you want to extract more tax from them. And you want to do a trial run. What are you doing? You're using suffering workers as guinea pigs. What the hell are you doing to people's lives? Let's return to the VAT. So there was no consultations with industry. Alexander, evidence is there through submissions that the business representatives made to the parliamentary committee on the budget. There was no consultations with unions. And Dudu, Margaret Dudu Muhango Manakato, says she consulted. Now, let me put 2 ministers together. What did Waryangandu say on the floor of the House a few days ago? He said, Mr. Speaker, I would like to withdraw this GST sales tax from the floor of the House because I want to consult more. This is a PF minister, Dudu, saying she consulted. Here's another PF minister saying, I want to withdraw so I can consult. So who is telling the truth? Let the two argue. Do they need to argue? No. Somebody lied. Margaret lied. She knows she's lied. Maybe that's why she's not there anymore in that job. God help her. As professionals, we don't tell lies. Never. We don't mislead people. Right? We don't do it. So, Musogotwane, it is not me. It is Waryangandu who withdrew this matter for further consultations, and he said he will bring it back in September, October, after consultations.
Sure.
So Manakatwe says she consulted. Waryangandu says he withdrew to consult. There was no consultation, there was no planning, there was no thinking, there was no seriousness.
All right.
This is PF for you.
So since we've taken a break now from the issue of the sales tax, and I think it's a point of reflection for the business community and all those interested in this particular discussion, what should we do now as Zambians as we are waiting for the resumption of this bill in Parliament?
Well, the first thing they should have done was never even to talk about sales tax without doing enough work. They should have simply done more work, not just consultations, but technical assessment of the efficacy of sales tax replacing VAT. They never did that. When we say PF have no plan, it's chipa and tepante, people thought we were joking. This is the chipa and tepante we've been talking about for many years now. You see it, and it's costing the economy a lot. The revenue impact is that there will be lesser revenue collected this year, because there was an assumption that there will be a switch over to GST. It will not happen. Now, we as Zambians must learn a lesson that electing a team into government should not be taken lightly. You pay a huge price, like the saga on VAT versus GST, goods and services tax. It requires competent leadership. And that's why I'm saying you can't call politics a game. Sure. It requires competent leadership. And I believe Zambians are learning lessons, and they will act correctly when an opportunity to replace the failed PF team.
Which you think should be done earlier?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. So for now, they have eaten a humble pie. VAT continues. In my view, they must now look at how to improve the challenges they have with VAT. That's a recommendation we made earlier on, so that it truly reflects the consumption tax that it should be and promotes investment activities through supporting, if you like, savings at the earning level, at the income earning level. Because you need those savings. You see, if you consume everything, you have no savings, you have no chance in hell to invest, because you will not create capital. And this is a basic understanding that a leadership in today's world needs. It's not there in the PF. That's why you see a mess like this on VAT versus sales tax. It's a total mess.
Most of the things you're talking about, Mr. Hichilema, it's like you're giving this country that we are really, really in trouble. It's becoming ungovernable. Any good things that you notice about this country?
There's a lot of good about Zambia. You said any good we say about this country? There's a lot of good
in relation to the government, in relation to the ruling party.
Alexander, God gave us too many resources. Water, arable land, everything. Gave us people. But we have the wrong people in government. They are messing us up. What can you say about an economy of 26 billion, which will decline to 23 billion, and your debt will be 21.7 billion by end of December? What can you say about that? This is an economy they inherited when President Mwanawasa, may so rest in peace, took us out of HIPIC into almost a debt-free country. Very small debt, less than $1 billion. And within a short time, you have an incapable government, party in office, that wipes out the gains of the people of Zambia through President Mwanawasa, may so rest in peace. What would you be saying? You would be saying that never again should we allow an incompetent leadership like this of the PF. Never again, because the damage is colossal to all of us, without exception. So really, this is a time for citizens to unite, Alexander, to say this is wrong. What is this? The PF is wrong. Everything with the PF is wrong. Now we need a decent leadership. And a leadership that cares.
And a decent leadership in this case is the UPND.
We believe so. And I think we've been now proven. The test of the pudding is in the eating. What we said in 2012, 2013, 2014 has come to pass. Now we are in a mode where we are in agreement as a people that this group has failed. The next group is the UPND and colleagues and other forthright thinking Zambians. And let's reunite the country, which is divided by PF. The country is divided heavily by PF for selfish reasons, to stay in office even when they can't deliver, even when they're damaging the economy like that. So we need unity to rediscover our unity.
When you say unity, we need to come together. one would say you are the political leaders that don't seem to agree on most of the things. That's where maybe the unit should start with the top political brass before it comes down to common Zambians.
Yeah, there's what is called unity in diversity. Right? We can maintain different opinions. But when it comes to saving the nation, one opinion should prevail. Saving the people of Zambia to the best of our abilities, using our capabilities, vision, the right policies, implementation capability, monitoring and control, so that a widow can have a chance to see her son, her daughter go through university, even when she has no money. That's a UPND policy. After university, after college, the widow can celebrate that the son, the daughter is now working and can look after themselves, and then their children, who are the grandchildren to the widow. Not today under PF. Many young people, youth are out of employment, school. Many are not in employment. They are walking the streets of Lusaka, of Chamboli, of Chama after graduating because there are no jobs. This makes me hurt inside, bleed inside. You cannot treat citizens in this way. And you wake up the following morning and say, yeah, I'm the president. You're even sitting in a jet, stretching your legs in an expensive jet when citizens cannot sit on a desk in a school. Where is your pride? Where is your seriousness? Where is your love for the people you claim to represent? Where is it? Now, we as citizens must unite in diversity, but we have a common interest, the welfare of the people, the governance, to end corruption. And I hope we'll get to that. To end corruption in our country, which has reached endemic levels where money is siphoned out of the system. And that's why the economy can't grow. That's why there are no jobs. That's why there are no business opportunities. Today, Alexander, a widow has a house to rent. There's no tenant. When the tenant is in the house, they can't pay. They're in arrears. Why? Because they have no money. They too have not been paid. My brother, my friend, an agro dealer today is threatened to lose their business because they've not been paid by government. A farmer who put a deposit for fertilizer and seed did not receive the fertilizer and seed. Right? Livestock diseases do not allow livestock farmers to sell their livestock, to feed their children, to send their children to school, because the government has failed to control livestock diseases. We are saying one of our priorities will be disease control for livestock, so that you can produce crop. Crop is produced by livestock, oxen. These are issues, very serious issues. Right. Look, you need to know that. You need to know that. If and when Zambians decide to unite, they get what they want. 1991, we got what we wanted. And we never thought that we'd be in this situation again after 1991. Even I never imagined in my wildest dreams that we will have a mess of a government like this PF. That people will be suffering as they're suffering today. So we need unity of purpose to come together to agree that within a democracy, we must replace this failed party with a progressive and capable party. That's the unity I'm talking about. Right. We don't have to have a love affair with each other. I follow what Mr. Lungu says about HH every day. I hear, I don't pay attention to him. Because those comments are so divisive, they're so negative. And gladly, Zambians are dealing with him. You've seen their reactions to the comments he's been making. And I'm really shielded. Other people are shielded from there because Zambians are taking this battle upon themselves, because this is un-Zambian. So we need what I call competition for service, better service to the people. We don't need an image. He's projecting an image. He's taking the place of God. He can never be God. So why drive an image? Why say things that he says about citizens? Kiss coming. What's the trouble?
For the sake of time and knowing that we have still few issues to discuss.
Corruption. Hopefully we can deal with corruption.
But before we get to that, let's look at just in general.
Yes.
There's a lot of interest from the mining sector and your opinions with regards what is happening now. Of course, with I hope we can be careful with this, especially that it's still before the courts of law. But let's look at the issue of KCM and government's move to save the interests, as what has been propagated or said, that they need to save the interests of Zambians first. Do you think we're doing the right thing as Zambia?
No. PF, Zambians know what is right, what needs to be done to the mining sector. The PF is mishandling this sector. In a nutshell, the PF is mishandling this sector just like many other sectors. The way they've killed agriculture, they're killing the mining sector. KCM is a point in case. It's a case in point. That's the correct English. KCM is a case in point. Again, Alexander, if you follow our conduct, our behavior, we issued a position, we advised the government, even before the crisis reached this level, that do not put KCM in liquidation. Put it under management. Why? Liquidation is liquidation. They're trying to skate around. They are putting party cadres to liquidate a mine. You put a party cadre? Are you joking? This is a complex asset. It needed a competent management team to maintain, one, the integrity of assets. Two, to make sure that the trading, production, trading activities continue. Why? Number three, so you can find a suitable buyer, a competent buyer to take over KCM. We hear the PF, for corrupt reasons, have already or are deciding to give KCM to a Chinese company. I can say it with my eyes open. They're already doing deals around to give KCM to a Chinese company. Is that company competent? Is that what will protect the jobs of miners, 13,000 people? Is that what will protect jobs of mine suppliers, mine contractors? Right? Is that what will protect dependents of all these employees, direct and indirect, as well as businesses that depend indirectly on the mining sector? Is that in the interest of the people of Zambia? My guess is no. But why are they proceeding that way? They wanted to sell the mine. They want to sell KCM for nothing by taking it through a liquidation. By putting a liquidator in a company, I'm talking knowledge here. You already wipe out the value potentially you can get. As we sit, the PF government's decision has wiped out a good percentage of KCM's value. So that even if you find a buyer, a competent buyer,
So the only problem you have with KCM and government is liquidation?
No, I'm not saying that. Liquidation is only one. In the first place, Alexander, who owns KCM? Two owners of KCM. It's Vedanta and the government through ZCCM-IH. Who represents the government and citizens? It's the Ministry of Finance. They were board members. They are board representatives on KCM. Why did they sit on that board and not say something and allow the situation to degenerate to a point where KCM degenerate to that level? Why?
So
they are confirming to us that they were sleeping on duty. So my first issue is that they slept on duty. And are causing
so
us...
the problem that KCM is going through, the government should be blamed as well?
100%. They're part of it. If you're a competent board member representing a shareholder, in this case, the government, you deal with issues very early on the board. When you see suppliers are not being paid on time, workers are not being paid on time, you bring that matter to the board. And you find a solution. But today, the PF wants to walk out like they were not party to the mess in KCM. They were party to that mess. So they want to cheat us. They want to put a cloth over our eyes. They were part and parcel of what was going on in KCM. Because they were shareholders. They are shareholders still. They are board members. So now, why would you then appear to the citizens that as PF you are exonerated when you are part of the mess? Do they think Zambians don't think? Do they? The answer is no. We think. Citizens think. And some of us will speak for the rest of the people of Zambia. Because we fear nothing. There's too much fear, Alexander, in our country. People are oppressed, they are suppressed, they are afraid. I'm asking the people of Zambia, remove the fear. This is your country. Don't allow the PF to damage your country irreparably. Because how are we going to reconstruct the economy at the rate at which PF is damaging the economy? As you saw the numbers on the debt, and we'll come to corruption. Now, they're damaging the mining sector. They're impairing the ability of the mining sector to help create jobs because of the lack of leadership in the PF and because of greed and because of corruption. This is the price we're paying. We already gave our advice, put KCM under management, continue the operations, protect the integrity of assets, do not allow flooding in the mines, do not allow thefts to take place. This is already happening now. So, and then they want to sell the mine to incompetent friends. You and I can guess why they want to do that. One of the reasons is for a commission. Who benefits from that commission? A small number of people in PF. The mine communities continue suffering. The mine community must not agree for KCM to be sold to friends of PF. We need a competent taker of that mine so that we can restore the economic value of the mine, including tax contribution, paying suppliers on time, paying workers on time, paying contractors on time. And also for us in UPND, our policy will be very clear. Contracts for goods and services will favor Zambians and Zambian companies. Full stop. That's the law we are going to put.
Right.
So that we can increase domestic activity. Moving copper must be by Zambian trucks. Zambian trucks must move our copper wherever it's going. Right? Who do you see moving copper in our country and on our roads? Foreign trucks. We will protect owners of transport businesses by giving them contracts by law. And then we know that when they earn more money, we will not be selfish ourselves. Because PF is full of selfish people. They don't want to see Zambians succeed. We know that in return, we will grow the economy. In return, we will create jobs. So if you have a truck that is on rocks and you can't get business, any business in this country, for such services, including other things, like we say on land. Land belongs to Zambians. Anyone who wants land must join venture with Zambians. That's the capital we'll give to Zambians. Same with Mukula. Look at the Mukula trees.
Talking of land, just quickly, so the land that is owned by the foreign nationals, what will happen?
Oh, we're clever about it. We're not careless. We understand how the economy works, how land tenure system should work. We start with a new untitled land. New titles will go to Zambians. Musokotwane, if we give you as a young person, young, husband, 10 acres of an industrial plot, whoever wants to build a factory will come to you and join venture with you. There's your capital, given to you by the UPND government through the right leadership and the policies. All of a sudden, you are a shareholder in a factory. That's how it works in Dubai. That's what we do. And some people tell me that, oh, I cannot be an owner of a mine. No, you can't be. You can. You are not an owner because you have no leadership that cares for you. If you're a Jarabo, why should you be chased from one mine dump to another? When UPNDHH comes in, we'll give you licenses to become legalized small-scale miners and give you capital. First, give you the license. 2, give you the capital, including technology and partnership. So, why do you want to be duped by PF every time they want to use you to beat opposition leaders? Because they say, no, we have given you this dump, mine dump. We will legalize you as mine owners, license owners, and give you capital and technology and partners. And then you can mine. You don't have to run in the night. You don't have to dig those dumps and your members are dying there. We will ensure that you mine in a safe way. This is a UPND policy. I'm giving another alternative here. What we'll do. So, no license for Mukula will go to a Chinese or any other foreigner. Nothing, zero. Those licenses will go to Zambians. Absolutely, Muzogotwane. It sounds dramatic, isn't it? It's real. It will happen. Because the resources God gave us as Zambians, He put us here. That's the asset He gave us. And that's the asset we use to make our people live a better life. Those are fundamental changes we're going to make. And you will see the benefits in the economy growing, in more jobs being created, and fair tax, not the huge tax burden that you see today. Poor tax, road tolls, pay as you earn, now health insurance tax. You want to give money to an incompetent PF government so that they can live lavishly and the workers suffer. I saw the mine work, sorry, the ZCTU representatives. They were arguing a very good case. A few days ago, they were on television. How PF has botched up this health insurance scheme and how they want to kill private sector insurance. You don't do things like that. You don't do things like that because you are killing Zambian jobs. You're also leading retirees to a point that when they retire, they cannot get their benefits because you have given the money to an incompetent manager of pension funds, of retirement benefits. It's wrong. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Just quickly, before we look at issues of corruption, you've been talking around the issue of the agriculture sector, but just getting one question from there. There's been an imaging of pictures showing meal prices.
Yes.
And some months back, you talked of the weather pattern asking, giving your prophetic political prophecy.
I'm glad you're following that.
At least political prophecy, let me call it that way.
Economic prophecy.
What will happen?
That's what I'll call it.
What will happen to the meal prices? Now in this case,
yes.
Should we still putting blame on those in authority?
Yes.
On the current meal prices that we are experiencing, or maybe there are better solutions that should be away from the blame game on government?
Okay. Why do we have high prices of food? Why do we have high prices of meal? It's because of the poor policies of the PF. In agriculture.
The blame has been made on the poor with a pattern.
No. That's an excuse. Alexander, that is an excuse. Look at that meal, 125 kwacha per bag. When PF found the meal, that same bag, 25 kg, at 30 kwacha. So who should we hold responsible? I know the PF wants to hold HH responsible for everything. That in itself is an admission of failure by PF. Why don't they just say, HH, look, and UPND, we have failed. Please pick it up from there. That is squarely on PF. It's not a weather issue. In early this year, we say to PF, and in writing, do not export the maize stocks that are there because the season will be bad. We said it. Right? What did they do? They argued as usual that they had enough maize stocks, that the prices will not increase. What has happened today? That's what you see there. High price of melamine. Because the maize that was there, they exported it at a profit as PF politicians, having had bought it from farmers at a low price. And I talked about it again earlier, 2018. Today you see the high price of melamine because the quantity of maize available has gone down. The yield was low. If we had kept the stocks, the supply of maize would have been stable and the price of melamine would have been stable. Again, when I said it, someone said, HH, is he a prophet? No, not in that way, but in the way of knowing what is happening and what will happen in the future. By understanding the current situation, because the price is affected by the supply side of maize. Now, there's hunger in all parts of the country, but worse in Central Province, because the rains were poorer, in Lusaka Province, because the rains were poorer, in Southern and in Western. Now we hear they are even trying to avoid people, stopping people who are buying maize from the northern part of Central, Mukushi, Serenje, to take it to the deficit areas. And they are feeding people with 10 kg bags of, I'm told, grit, maize grit. Some sort of a concoction of maize meal. I don't know what's going on with these people. Now, if they listen to us, the price of melamine would have not escalated to that level. All they needed was to hear. Even if they don't, they may not like us. You know,
sure.
Alexander, you don't have to like what HH says.
Maybe you should change your communication model.
No.
How do you communicate to
We say
on these
politely.
problems?
This aspect, the statement is there. It's in the middle.
So
very polite.
You depend on issuing statements?
Hear me out. What is happening in our country is that PF are failing to admit their inabilities to do the right things. And we render advice not because of anything other than the love of the people. They don't have to like HH and UPND. They can shield their visions of HH's face and UPND's and other Zambians, not just us, by the way, and other Zambians, but at least take in the messages we're giving, the advice we're rendering to protect the interests of the people, not to allow melamine to increase that cost. If they listen to us, they don't have to like us. They don't have to. But they must listen to us. Then citizens will be having meal that is affordable today. Is it not PF who told us in the 2016 election, run-up election, that someone went to Saudi Arabia and said, I'm going to Saudi Arabia. When I come back, fuel will be 5 kwacha per liter. Where is the fuel for 5 kwacha per liter? Wenye, Boza. Where is it? Bubera. Bubera bwatama kishabaka kuyuka. Buhata. Kube chabadala. There's nothing. Listen to other people for the sake of the people of Zambia. Listen to sound advice. That's my advice to PF. So you are saying it's the way we advise. What should we do, Alexander? How should we do it?
Write directly or seek audience?
Audience with who? Who will listen to me? Mr. Lungu doesn't want to dialogue. Today he says, no, I want to dialogue with HH. He goes somewhere else, he says, no, I don't want to dialogue. No, HH will not survive. What does he mean? What does he mean? What is the issue? We are here for the people. Not for Lungu, not for HH. We're here for the 17 million Zambians. That's why he is in public office. That's why we are seeking public office. Once you understand why you are seeking public office, you will behave correctly. But it is not the case with PF. They have ears, but they don't hear. They have eyes, but they don't see. Who suffers? It's the children, innocent children. It's the widows. It's the orphans. It is the households that are having to buy food at a high cost. Because the PF have eyes, they don't see, they have ears, they don't hear. They are redundant, in summary. They should exit so that the country can be run by a different team. With ears, with eyes, with interest and love for the people.
As we are coming almost to the end of the program, yes, I know you really want to talk about corruption, yes, and I have so many questions for you. But just to introduce us to this topic, let's look at this video. We are back shortly.
No matter how much water I pour into this bucket, no matter how long I wait, it will never get full. Why? The water is leaking on arrival. African nations are like this bucket. Africa has leaks of corruption. And so it does not matter how much tax we collect from the citizen. It does not matter how much donation we get from the developed countries. It does not matter how much we borrow. So long as the leaks of corruption are still there, the visions we have for our country will still remain a mirage. Why? The money is leaking out on arrival. I pity the hoi polloi, that is the simple citizen. Imagine the tax you are paying is leaking out into the hands of few merciless devourers who are using the public funds to galvanize themselves against poverty. Who will help us block these leaks of corruption? Do you think one person can single-handedly block these leaks? I believe it has to be an orchestra of the leaders and the citizens who have vowed to slay this monster called corruption. We see the corruption leaks everywhere. At our workplace we see them. In our business premises we see them. But what are we doing about it? Because if we continue this way, we are passing this into generations and the generations to come. It all starts with what each and every one of us is doing on a daily basis.
My guest is the United Party for National Development, UPND President Hakainde Hichilema. Topic, governance question, the United Party for National Development, UPND perspective. As we almost concluding on this issue of corruption, quite a big topic, I must say. And the question has always been, yes, whether corruption does exist or not, and what are we doing as Zambians, common Zambians, of course, and those that scream for corruption, that it exists, have been asked to provide evidence as one way to help the government fight it conclusively. Generally, corruption in Zambia. What's Mr. Hichilema's answer?
That video is talking about African countries. It's talking about Zambia. Clearly, that bucket is what's happening in Zambia, that leaking bucket. People pay tax, they put in that bucket, it drips out. Ambulances, fire tenders. Loans come in. Now, external loans, we are talking about 14 billion, right? $14 billion. That money came into that bucket and leaked through. That's why there's no economic growth. That's why there are no jobs. That's why there's no money in the households, in the economy, because the money leaked through that bucket. That's PF government. That's what they are. That's what they're doing. It's perfect typification through that video. So, nothing, no development, no medicines in hospitals because the money is leaking. There will be no cheaper food because the money is leaking. Copperbelt University students, Lusaka, will be suffering because the money is leaking and is going out of the country to buy lavish homes for individuals. They're using government as a business. Politics is not a business. It's a service. It's the way we know it. It starts from there. The orientation in the mind. Our orientation in the mind that we want to make money, it's in business. That's why I went for business first. And now we come into politics to serve the people so that our mindset is correct. Seeking public office for service to the best of our abilities. Not that way. Solutions for us will have a zero tolerance to corruption. Zero tolerance to corruption. We are also going to put certain measures. First, we want to strengthen and make operationally independent the Anti-Corruption Commission. Under our leadership, there's no way the Anti-Corruption Commission will say they can't find the owner for 48 houses. There's no way. Land is traceable. There's a parent file at Ministry of Lands. When you are submitting building plans, you submit to the council. The title deed has an owner. If there was a movement of the ownership, it shows. Unless they're saying that, because they're afraid of giving us details. Why did it take long? So we will strengthen the Anti-Corruption Commission, make them professional, operationally independent. They will get their money subvented to them by Parliament, meaning that Parliament will allocate the money to the oversight institutions. Anti-Corruption Commission, Auditor General, Financial Intelligence Center. We will not agree to the PF's agenda. By the way, in the constitutional amendments they're trying to fudge, they want to move the Financial Intelligence Center to be a department under the Drug and Enforcement Commission. Drug and Enforcement Commission is moribund. The Financial Intelligence Center is doing it, so we will leave the Financial Intelligence Center separate and independent and give it more teeth to bite. We'll do the same for the Auditor General. We'll do the same for Anti-Corruption Commission. We'll do the same for the Drug Enforcement Commission. We will leave them to run professionally. We will not interfere in their program of audits. And when they produce reports, reports will go simultaneously, one to the executive, which means the president, cabinet, and whoever else in the executive. Another will go to law enforcement agencies, the police, another copy at the same time. Another copy will go at the same time to the prosecutions, DPP, right? So those are measures we're going to put in place. And when these reports are produced, like the FIC report, that shows that that bucket in 2017 and 2018 in this country leaked, stolen money, misappropriated, misapplied, mismanaged. Just these two reports, 2017, 2018, $1.1 billion went through those holes in that bucket. How can you have development? How can you have medicines in hospitals? FIC report is a government report. It's a government institution. And what did Mr. Lungu say? He rubbished. He says, what did he say? He says, mfwiti, mfwiti. Without shame. He was saying, mfwiti, mfwiti, mfwiti. He was rubbishing the FIC report. Did you expect any follow-up? Would the police touch a report where The one who is sitting on top is saying Mfwiti, Mfwiti. Then he goes and says, Ubomba Muibala. Haria Muibala. That's a wrong orientation. So now, we will not interfere in that manner. Just to give you an example, very briefly. So that the FIC report, the Auditor General's report, the anti-corruption, all of them, the law enforcement agencies will act on them based on their professional understanding and decide which matters to take to court, which matters not to take to court, which matters not to prosecute. We will also ensure that we remove the current situation where wrong people are arrested because there's no investigation. Instead of arresting people who are mentioned in the FIC report, in the Auditor General's report, they are arresting political competitors and throwing them into police cells only to issue knowledge letter. Let me give you an example. Last month, 10 plus of our members were arrested in Petauke. Even women thrown in the court, in the cells, only to be given a knowledge. Why were they arrested? Vindictiveness. We will stop that. Last week or so, 17 of our members in Shwangandu were thrown in jail and denied bail.
Sure.
Now, we will reform the criminal justice system so that citizens are treated equal and fairly. By doing that, we will ensure that there's rule of law. There's respect for human rights, liberty, and freedom. But this is tied into the corruption. The corrupt must be the ones being arrested, not the innocent people.
So you're saying that there's no action on the FIC?
No.
What will happen to these cases when you come into?
Let me reinforce.
In an event, you came into power.
Alexander, as we take over office, courtesy of the people of Zambia, God's will, not man's will, God's will. First commandment, nobody replaces the law of God. There shall be no other gods or figureheads like Mr. Lungu is trying to do, except God. Courtesy of the people of Zambia, God's will. As we take office, we've explained what we'll do in corruption. Zero tolerance. We will also put a unit, a professional unit, under the Auditor General to audit all procurement contracts. All contracts for roads, for fire tenders, for everything, anything. There will be a unit that will audit to see that tender procedures were followed. If somebody stole money, they stole money.
All right. And
the process will take its own course, independently. That is what we are assuring the people of that. But all of that will be done professionally. Alexander, I also want to say here that the civil service will be managed differently under UPND. Will return to a professional civil service, where anyone from any part of Zambia can become a permanent secretary, can become secretary of treasury. You don't have to know Hakainde or a minister in UPND. You don't have to be a relative of Hakainde. As long as you're qualified, you're professionally competent, you have the experience, you become a PS, professional civil service.
Right.
All of those that have been removed from government by the PF government, my message is that you are on leave. You are just on leave. As we come in, we'll bring you back into your jobs on full pay, because you are citizens who should not be victimized, who should not be treated like your second-rate citizens, your eco-citizens. We want to bring back civility and sanity in the civil service. Protect the civil servants who are working, but stop the politicians who are stealing from the people from stealing by strengthening oversight institutions and governance. That is the UPND. And we want to bring back, again, happiness, where you are proud to work for a government department. Proud. And you'll be treated fairly. That's part of the unity we want to bring back to our country.
Mr. Chilema, thank you very much for making an appearance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
We've been discussing the governance question the United Party for National Development, UPND perspective. So we did touch on a number of issues affecting this country. So this has been this week's edition of the Oxygen of Democracy. I'm back next week. My name is Alexander Musogotwane. Blessed evening.
Thank you.